Okay, next step usually is drilling something. You can use a hand drill, it doesn't matter as long as you hold the workpiece steady. However, again, the best thing to use is a pillar drill. This is one of the really cheap ones you can pick up for 50-60 quid, I think, from several places. I inherited this one. I have another one here I bought from a car boot sale for 15 quid, so they're not exactly expensive and they're plenty adequate for Kydex, and I actually do quite a lot of metal drilling on these for knife work. For Kydex, the best drills you can get are brad point wood drits. So these have a little tiny sharp point on them and they cut the edge first before scooping out the middle. These are best because they give a nice clean hole. They're very easy to locate accurately on an exact point due to this hole here. But if you don't have them, most people have got normal drill bits. These are high-speed steel ones for general purpose. They will drill a hole adequately. You might have to deburr it a bit more, but there's nothing wrong with starting out with these. However, I would recommend that you use a new one which is nice and sharp. This one isn't quite. This one's been used. The other thing I would recommend is you use the correct sizes, which for these being an American setup is 1/4 inch for the larger rivets and 3/16 inch for the smaller ones, and use that size drill. I've only found one place or one make that I can get an Imperial brad point bits. These are made by Colt in Germany, and the only place I've found them for sale is at Axminster Tools. You may be able to pick them up from proper woodworking shops. B&Q don't do Imperial drills, especially not these. Okay, they're only 1/4 inch is only a couple of quid from Axminster, so you can buy a set. As I say, I've got a few of them in different sizes. These double ones, that's the 3/16. This is a 5mm, which is slightly bigger than the 3/16. You can use that for the 3/16 rivets, but it's a 1/4 of a millimetre bigger in diameter, and for me I can notice the difference, and I don't trust it as much. Again, this is a 6.5mm from B&Q, so it's slightly bigger again, and that's not quite such a big gap, so you can probably just about get away with this, but for the price of them, buy some of the proper jobs. So drilling, I've got the brad point 1/4 inch in here. I'm making the bush key bit. This is just a sample just to show you the different processes, not how to make a bush key particularly. I normally position this by hand. You can drill straight through, but as you can see, hopefully, if I rub on it, there's a spot there. It gives the equivalent of a centre point, which is nice and accurate. Because I'm drilling through a flexible bit, I've just put in a 4mm spacer there to support it. It gives a reasonably clean, sharp hole. There's a little bit of swarf in there, which will come out quite easily. Piece of scrap. Hopefully you can see these ones with a high-speed steel drill, they're not quite as clean, there's a little bit more turn up. These ones you can probably just about put a Kydex rivet straight in and rivet it. These ones will need a quick deburr. Not difficult, but again, when you're doing a lot of them, every little bit helps. Save a second on 100 or 200 things, you've saved quite a lot of time. Okay, usually after you've drilled your sheath or whatever, you're going to want to trim it to size. Now normally you can use a combination of bandsaw and a grinder. For this particular one I've put a little bandsaw notch in after I've marked out where I want to cut away, and the rest I grind off on this particular sheath. This is my big grinder, but again, any little grinder or sander, you can even do it by hand or with a knife, with whatever you've got available, hacksaws. I've marked on here using one of the keys, so I need to cut round the back, down the end, and then tidy it up. The scratch is on there. If you can't quite see it, if you rub your fingers across these, all the grit sort of comes into the line, and you should be able to see the line a bit easier. Okay, sorry about that. The camera doesn't like vibration and sometimes stops, so I've had to restart it. So there we've got our sanding done. Again, you can sand flat to the belt, whatever you want to do, freehand, etc., depending on the application. Okay, so the next phase, we'll clean up the edges and rivet it together. Okay, you can deburr the edges using a knife to scratch down the sides, same as usual. Hand sandpaper, it all works, it just takes a little longer. I find the easiest way for me is a polishing mop on this side. I've got a Scotch-Brite mop on this side. I've got a plain unsoaked stitched wheel. Both of these are quite good at finishing the edge of Kydex. They'll polish the edges, but however, because plastic is quite soft, these will actually cut and remove quite a lot of material if you're not careful. So So the Scotch-Brite on this particular item does a good enough job. Deburrs it all, cleans it off, makes it reasonably smooth. For other jobs you might want a polished edge. And a clean unsoaked mop does a very good job of polishing the edge on here. If we take an undone one, like I've got a bit of wastage on here, which you can see these edges aren't lined up. This one's higher than the back. You can see Scotch-Brite will easily remove material. Always nice to have a new mop, you get stuff everywhere. And even the mop will round over edges and remove material if you lean a little bit too hard. It doesn't take a lot. This can be an advantage and a disadvantage. You can use it to take corners off and round edges nicely, although you can slip. It will also remove finish if you hit the sides too hard, and if you've got a rivet and it's been pre-riveted, the Scotch-Brite especially will take the black finish off the rivets. The polishing mop will as well, but to a lesser extent. So you've just got to be aware of what you're doing on those, so that you use them to do the finish you want and not the finish that they want. Obviously you can sand and polish all these by hand. It's a bit tedious, but again, if you haven't got it and you're only doing a one-off sheath, it doesn't matter. This is just, again, a converted grinder. We'll take the grindstones off, put on the added bits. With pigtails. These mops are freely available from places like Axminster Tools and all over the place. Again, I bought this one from a car boot sale. I think this one cost me 10 quid. So, a nice bargain there. Right, next one is riveting. Riveting. I use a arbor press with professional dies and tools. These are from knife kits because I use the knife kit's rivets. Generally speaking, the rivets are normally made with the tools, so buy the rivets and the tools from the same company and then stick with those rivets. I don't think these dies would very easily fit, for example, USAKnifemaker.com's rivets. They may do, I don't know, but they do sell their own dies, etc. These are professional ones. They're designed to fit in an arbor press. They do much cheaper ones which are designed to be hit with a hammer, and again, if you're only going to have a little go and do a few occasionally, they're more than adequate if you want to use the rivets. So we have two parts to the die, top and the bottom. This arbor press I bought from Knife Kits. It was a bit of a mistake because it added a lot of postage because of the weight, but it was pre-drilled here and in the ram to take these 3/8 inch dies. Unfortunately, they didn't get these two to line up. As you can see, that one doesn't actually fit into their hole, so I had to re-drill the hole anyway. These are available. This is a standard half-ton arbor press from Axminster Tools for 30-40 quid or something. All you'll have to do is drill a hole in the ram and matching holes in the plate. It's soft iron, it's fairly easy to drill. It's designed to be modified like this to fit jobs. This is the 3/16 die for the 3/16 rivets. It's mounted at the moment, so I'm going to bring it down and take it off because we want to use a 1/4 inch rivet. Loosen off the grub screw. Again, it's fairly simple to drill and tap these, but again, an engineering company should be able to do it for you if you buy one and you haven't got the tools. Take out the 3/16 ones. The 1/4 inch one, the spike goes in the bottom. The matching bar goes on the top. I've just oiled this, so tighten it up, and there we go. This can be used with lots of other different tools. I know some people like Ian Atkinson, etc. use this for their leather stamps. As long as you can adapt it to fit, it shouldn't be too difficult. This is another set of tools I've just bought, I haven't used yet. These are basically just two cones that come together, and these are designed to flare out a plain piece of tube, so I can make tube rivets for fixing handles on. I might even be able to possibly use them to make very long rivets for Kydex, although I haven't thought of an application for that yet. You never know. Right, take your parts, Again, this isn't a sheath, but it's the same principle. The rivet has a good side and a bad side generally. The good side is generally thought of as the pre-flared bit. The other side doesn't always flare as nicely. This one fits through here. This is the 125 thou rivet, so it's designed to fix two pieces of 3mm together basically, so giving it 6mm. However, I've got 3.5mm and 4mm, so we're a bit over its normal capacity, but there's plenty sticking out here. The bit that's pre-flared goes on the top, the other one goes in. Bring the ram down and a light pull. It's a bit loose for this particular application. A little squeeze, that's better. Again, you'll get used to how hard you hit the hammer or how hard you flare this as you use it to get the right tension. This one, and I recommend you do it, is screwed down so that you can put a reasonable force on there. You've got to mess around trying to hold it down and hold your item. It makes it a lot harder. Whether you screw it to a worktop that's solid or G-clamp it to something else, I recommend that if you do use one of these, it's fixed. It's designed to be used like that, so you're putting half a ton of pressure on this one, so it's quite a lot of force. There we have it. That pretty much covers all the basic steps of a piece of Kydex that can be applied to anything you want to make from Kydex, really. As I say, mark it out, cut it. You've then got to heat it and form it, trim it to size and shape, drill it, rivet it together, quick clean and polish, and you've got it. As you can see, the orange in this particular job has got particularly dirty. That will clean up quite easily with some anti-bac spray from the kitchen. As I say, it's a plastic, it washes up quite nicely. Thank you for watching.